For the last couple of days, there's been relative calm in Mozambique, but I suspect that is not going to last. The opposition leader, Venâncio Mondlane, has been in, does one call it, given the fact that it's a relatively short period, self-imposed exile for a while now, but he says he's coming back. He says, I'm preparing to come back to be martyred ahead of the planned swearing in of Daniel Chapo, who, according to Mozambique Constitutional Court, won the recent elections in that country. And, whether he is going to call for further insurrection, what plans he has in place to try and prevent the inauguration of Daniel Chapo, I don't know. I don't think he has shared those outside of his inner circle. Foreign Affairs journalist Peter Fabricius joins us now. Peter, good afternoon.
Hi, John.
We know that there's a special envoy. We know that South Africa is saying what South Africa always says, a negotiated settlement is best. I don't know the degree to which SADC negotiators are also there, but I don't know that there's any dialogue that will lead to any kind of mutual agreement between the government and the Mondlane-led opposition. Is there? Is there a meeting point where they can shake hands in the middle?
Yeah, I agree with you. It's hard to see that because it's unless you go to the sort of Zimbabwe 2008 option of a government of national unity or something, and it's hard to tell. SADC had this virtual summit on Sunday, and they agreed to dispatch a panel of elders to Mozambique to try and talk to them, both sides. Where that goes, it's really hard to say. I mean, it's hard to imagine that Frelimo is going to back off to the extent of inviting, Mondlane into government or anything like that. There may be some sort of compromise somewhere along the way, but it's hard. It's short of that, but it's hard to imagine what it would be. So yeah, as you say, things are looking quite tense when for his return on Thursday. I would only wonder though whether the fact that SADC and the region now has its officially has its this topic on its agenda might mean that the Frelimo would be inclined to be a little bit less physical in its response to Mondlane's return.
It's hard to see Frelimo accepting that the election was flawed in any significant way, and they have a constitutional court ruling for them to point to and say, it's not just us, look, it's our constitutional court.
Exactly.
And it's really hard to see, look, Venâncio Mondlane is a new quantity, I think, for most casual observers of the region. To long-time watchers of it, perhaps he's more of a known figure. But from what he's revealed of himself since he started making front-page news regularly, he doesn't strike one as being somebody who's going to go, oh, you know what, perhaps the Constitutional Court was right, perhaps we didn't do as well as we believe we did, and tough to swallow, but let's try and develop a working relationship with Frelimo. That seems equally unlikely.
Yeah, it does. Look, I mean, it's whether he will actually, you mentioned in your intro the possibility of him calling for insurrection. It seems from, if I'm reading his statements right, that he's calling for kind of a strike, which they've had before, and that seems to be his aim, not to, initiate violence, although the possibility always remains, of course, that the reaction might be violent. So to basically, demonstrate his power by stopping the country, and whether that happens and what bearing that has on the swearing in of Chapo as president is hard to say. One does have to mention, I think at this point, that there are definitely signs of divisions emerging within his own party. I mean, the Podemos party, which always had a rather tenuous relationship with him. I don't think he ever quite joined it, but it backed him in the election, and they've disagreed because they've decided that they want to take up the seats that the Constitutional Council awarded them, 47, which is slightly more than the Electoral Commission awarded them. And he's saying, no, we must boycott hold out for the 478 or whatever it is that he claims they won. So, I'm wondering if that's going to some degree, diffuse the tensions with the government. It's very unpredictable.
Peter, I've no idea how much a member of Mozambique's National Assembly, or whatever their equivalent is called, I don't know how much they earn, but I would imagine that there are those amongst the number in Podemos who would be able to get in there, who would be very grateful for the salary, the working conditions, and so on. So it's extremely likely that, if not all in one fell swoop, and they desert Mondlane, but significant numbers of them do, to make his impact on day-to-day life in Mozambique sort of dwindle away to nothing other than angry and embittered man, which is probably what Frelimo is hoping for. Yeah.
I don't know whether it would go to that, but that certainly would be what Frelimo is hoping for, I'm sure. And there is that. One recalls slightly the whole thing with Renamo too, where there was quite sharp divisions between the Renamo and the bush and Renamo and Parliament. I mean, it's not quite as clear cut as that yet, but there does seem to be that possibility. So, and we don't even know where this guy is. I mean, there's been, I guess, an assumption that he's been in exile in South Africa or maybe in Europe. But he announced that he's arriving on the flight at 8:10 on Thursday, and apparently the only flight at 8:10 on Thursday is from Qatar. So, it's very hard to read what's going to happen, but it's certainly going to be something to watch.
There is no chance that there will be a rerun of the election, which is what he wants and what others want, not necessarily members of Podemos as well, but there are other people who were unhappy with the conduct of the election and the counting and so on. That's not going to happen. Yeah. I guess if there's some sort of compromise, it might be some kind of advisory council or whatever, in which he and other members of the opposition are included, but he strikes me as a kind of uncompromising person who wouldn't buy that, So it's difficult to see how this thing ends in a sort of peaceful way. And Peter, your sense of how valid the complaints are about an election which went beyond being inefficiently run in some parts of the country to being a deliberate suppression of opposition of voter choice, because that voter choice favored the opposition rather than Frelimo. How valid do you think those complaints are?
I think the complaints about rigging are very valid, and it's very clear. And there's I don't know if even if the Electoral Commission even claims to be able to produce the proof, like for every polling station, certified copies of who voted for who. And so, I mean, as one analyst put it to me, the claims from either side are really impossible to verify. But what that does point to is the need for, as you say, probably a rerun under proper supervision. Not that that's going to happen, but that would be about the only thing that would sort of clarify the confusion.
Peter, thank you very, very much indeed.
Sure.
Peter Fabricius, and watch that one with interest. It is important, more than just one wants a stable environment in which our country sits. It is practically important, given the significance of the sort of high-felt Maputo road links, the Maputo harbour, and so on. And one hopes that some kind of resolution which pays some heed to a proper democratic outcome and also at the same time reduces tensions, short and medium term, can be found.